Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Challenges and Opportunities in the Apparel Supply Chain. What lies ahead for the future of the industry with David Alpern, SVP, Division Head, Rousey Group. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, to please submit them using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Here's your host, Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research.
Thanks so much, Drew. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for another amazing Coresight conversation. We're really excited to have David here with us today. I want to take a quick minute to highlight a great new report series at Coresight entitled Reimagine Retail. We've had 2 reports already published, including one on gamification, another on leveraging social media. We also had an in-depth report yesterday, a deep dive on live streaming, which of course is very much of the moment. This year, unlike any other, we have been providing answers to questions that have never been asked before, as this environment remains incredibly dynamic. We're able to do this as a result of your support. I want to thank you all for joining us today, especially David, who serves as SVP and Division Head for Rousey Group, a division of Cobalt Fashion, which is under the Fun Group umbrella. He has held roles of continuing importance at Rousey, and who is the premium importer of private label knitwear in the United States. Rousey combines its extensive sourcing and manufacturing expertise, which we'll hear both about today, with unparalleled knitwear design innovation to deliver mass market retailers best-in-class knitwear solutions. David began his distinguished career at HMS Productions. So with that, David, thank you so much.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks for having me.
So since we're talking about knitwear today, we're talking about the future of supply chain. You and I were talking earlier about, how we're both changing our, kind of in-person meetings. How are we thinking about, kind of back to school and holiday right now as it relates to knitwear? And how have your interactions with your clients changed to kind of get us this far?
Well, we're feeling very positive about knitwear, actually. I think it aligns a lot with what's happening in terms of how COVID has changed the work from home culture. It has changed people even living and going to school at home. We feel it aligns very with that. There's a lot of trends out there about cocooning, about staying cozy, a little bit more of an emphasis towards casual and warmth and ease. And we align a lot within that. A lot of our design aligns with that. So I think our customers are excited about it. And actually, we've seen pretty good reaction from them in terms of even adding on and chasing extra business. So while initially we saw some cutbacks with, the closures of everything happening, we've actually seen a lot of chasing product as we head into the season.
And as we're obviously seeing a very unique back to school season with many parents and students not knowing if they'll be in a physical classroom or a virtual one or some combination of the two, what are you seeing in terms of any change in the cadence of the back to school season?
Well, we think that it's going to be, right now for back to school, if we're like thinking of the traditional school children, I think that they're shopping very well. I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive, but all I'm hearing from a lot of our retailers is that fashion is actually selling very, very well. They are chasing business, and they're actually buying things that aren't necessarily so that you would think of exactly as work from home. So whether it's skirts or fashion tops, that business tends to be spiking.
Do you find that it's more the junior customer? Where are you seeing, kind of the greatest strength right now?
Junior customer is very, very strong right now. We're also hearing about strength in performance and lounge.
And this kind of idea of comfy cozy, as we look to holiday, and that's usually the time a lot of us think about sweaters. What are you seeing in terms of what's kind of early indications of what's selling well? I think we're talking about like a heavier gauge for this holiday season. How are you seeing the consumer continue to evolve in their taste levels and across the price spectrum as well?
Well, they're fully responding to newness, and we're seeing good, strong sales in elevated brands. At some of our, where our customers are elevating and adding in newness into their mix, where we're seeing performance. Things that they're carrying over from year to year too much are the programs that we're a little bit more afraid of. So I think everyone is looking to newness and about refreshing and reinventing their brands. And that, as the retailers have done that, they've seen success.
And as we, I joined a group of distinguished individuals yesterday to talk a little bit about back to school, and there was this big focus on core programs. What are you seeing from your customers in terms of thinking about those types of programs?
I think it's true. Like the big messages they're getting are definitely about reducing SKU count, making bigger bets on styles. And also when it comes to core, it's really about a value proposition. So it's not necessarily so much about price, but it is about driving value messages. And I think that's also key, particularly when we're talking about the mass retailer and we're looking at the growth of their online penetration as a percentage of their business. We're looking to see like how do they elevate their core and deliver those big messages to an online community that is also needs to be a lot extra product, extra colors, extra stripes or pattern details, expanding out that program. So I think those are the key things that they're really looking at is how do we drive and pay attention on core. And actually, it's interesting. One of our key customers has really decided to start their core development process earlier as we go in, so that they know that they have that more focused and buttoned up instead of chasing their core.
Do you think this is a kind of question from beyond, if you will, but as we think about, kind of the sweater category, I know there had been, kind of concerns. I want to say, I feel like it's been over the past 5 to 6 years around, as the temperatures are becoming warmer, this was a category that, we might see less interest in. One of the things, David, I always thought is that, a sweater has lasting value. Are you seeing the consumer or, the retailers you sell to think differently about this category from really kind of the foundation?
I think it's actually an underestimated category in the market. Sweaters are generally investment pieces. And I think, going back to what you're saying about climate change and warmth, we actually have not seen that effect on our business. What we found is we can develop seasonless lightweight sweaters that work well. I think as people are turning up their AC, they're always looking for that office cardigan or that other piece that's going to keep them warm. And then it's, from a design standpoint, there's been a big push, from a high-end design level towards sweaters getting chunkier and chunkier and chunkier, and actually lots of layering of sweaters. So what we're seeing is like head-to-toe dressing in sweaters, with the scarf, with the short, with the skirt, and it's happening throughout the whole season. So, we think that we're pretty bullish on where the business is for knitwear in terms of lifestyle trends that are happening. And also, like, as outerwear sort of gets less necessary, that lightweight sweater coat, can become that transitional piece for you. So we feel pretty good about it from that standpoint.
As we think about, kind of, how this category is continuing to evolve, what's happening as it relates to yarn, technology around yarn? We've certainly been to some trade shows and seen some really interesting, kind of where if you're, hot, the sweater cools you down. What are you seeing and what's gaining traction?
Well, the biggest traction that we're seeing is in actually sustainable raw materials. That's been the biggest area of growth for us. That's becoming like the key entry now. So pretty much whether it's fair trade cotton, recycled polys, those are the biggest innovations that are happening, and turning those recycled yarns into various textures. So we're not just getting like, when you think of a recycled yarn, you think you're going to get something that's stiff and boardy and not comfortable, but like taking all that technology and really delivering the normal expectation of fashion, but in recycled yarns. So that has been like the biggest push for us. Going forward, there's going to be a big push, we believe, into antibacterials. There's questions in terms of what we can get in terms of medical claims. I think that's going to be a big challenge, but we do think in terms of performance yarns and antibacterials is an opportunity to go forward as add value into our yarn offerings.
So this is perfect timing that the poll results came out right as I was going to ask you this question around virtual design. We thank you for all those who participate in the poll. 56% are kind of moderately comfortable with virtual design and development. And then, let's call it 38% or, the bulk of the rest are extremely. What are you seeing in terms of the interest in virtual design development, especially as we're kind of in this new world for now?
Customers are pushing us extremely hard on virtual design. And it's something that we've actually taken a step to try to preempt that. Like we really, at Cobalt, it is a major source of innovation for us and investment. We really believe that that is the future. We see innovations there in terms of texture and the ability to present an item that is a virtual sample that is almost as good as a real one. Now, in our environment where yarn is really, really important and that tactile feel of the sweater, that's something that we'll never be able to do. You know, I mean, on the decision tree for a customer, softness and hand feel is very high when it comes to a sweater. But what we're looking at, though, in terms of the appearance, ability and the ability to, you know, show fit and drape, that has increased a lot. And we're very excited about it. We see tremendous advantages in terms of sample reduction and efficiency that will apply and help the customers on a cost basis in a strong way. So we're very bullish about it. There's some challenges. I mean, we've been talking about them, challenges in virtually presenting. You know, how do you present a product that is so tactile online and in an effective way? So that's sort of where our business is shifting a lot. We're going a lot into, you know, we have to have a certain type of production value. You know, we're almost back in the TV business opposed to in the schmata business, you know. So it's a little bit of a hybrid happening here that we're going to have to develop and work on as we go forward. So that's some of the challenges that we see with it, but we feel pretty strongly about where it's going.
And then, David, as you're doing these presentations to customers, how are the questions changing with, you know, this virtual environment and with, you know, with which you're presenting?
I think the biggest thing is focus. You know, you can't present the same amount of ideas in a virtual meeting that you can present in an in-person meeting. So in a way, it's actually an opportunity for us. It's driving us to be more focused and really, like, you know, a customer would always say, "What's your top 5?" And we would show them 10. And we'd break it up a little bit, you know, and get to that side of it. But we really have to be top 3, you know, and like really have to drive home our messages because they don't have the ability to absorb in that kind of environment, like what they would previously, you know. And it's you have to keep their attention focused because you know, they're all spread out now. They're all remote. You know, they're not right directly in front of you. You can't have the side conversation that you used to have in a meeting with them. The kind of like, "Oh, I pulled this out for you." Like how you do all those things is changing. So that's focus is the key for us.
As you know, I mean, I don't think there's been any year that I've heard more about supply chain than 2020. And as we've seen, you know, disruptions, we've, you know, seen various concerns about, you know, kind of countries of origin as it might relate to being able to fill demand. And where are, you know, kind of where are we on the spectrum in terms of concerns over supply chain, and how are you addressing retailers' concerns for holiday 20?
You know, right now, this is definitely one of our biggest concerns. So with the appearance of the tariffs last year, we're heavily invested in China as a division. Corporately, Cobalt has a broader investment in Bangladesh and Cambodia, you know, so we've been diversifying corporately, but our division tends to be very heavily based in China because of certain values that we are able to extract out of the supply chain. And I think with the increase of tariffs was scary. We sort of dodged that bullet and we're able to manage the level that we're at now. But with all the geopolitical issues that are happening between the US and China right now, that's the biggest concern. So we're looking to diversify and expand our supply chain base, but there's a cost issue there. You know, China really has proven to be very valuable in this COVID situation because while they were experienced at first and it looked like it could get out of control, they also controlled it very, very well. And their production has not really, our production has not fallen off. Most of the delays happen in a business that would affect second quarter, which is really not a sweater business. So we really have not been affected by it from a production standpoint. And China has proven its strength and its ability to deliver, particularly as most of the yarns are really sweater-based and most of the machinery is really China-based. So we feel very strongly about China, but we're very concerned about the geopolitical issues, and that's forcing us to do an uncomfortable diversification that, you know, into higher risk zones. I mean, clearly the countries that don't have the infrastructure are feeling the pain of COVID a lot more than we do.
Those are exactly many of the conversations that we've had. Is once you're diversifying right now out of China, just, you know, with the virus and everything, there are a lot of concerns about, you know, the ability to actually, kind of meet some of these deadlines and these targets just in terms of quantity and quality. And as a result, we're starting to see a big pickup in interest. I mean, it's like this idea that's kind of been bounced around, but nearshoring and onshoring, how is Ralsei thinking about that? How are you thinking about that?
We would love to nearshore. The issue for sweaters and nearshoring has just been the linking machines. So we're a pretty unique production process, and linking machines and linking expertise is not something that exists in the United States or even in Central America. So that has been a big challenge for us. And you can't really cut and sew the finishing. The quality is not the same on a domestic made sweater as on a fully fashion linked sweater. So the challenge is we feel there's better opportunities outside in Southeast Asia that we can take advantage of there, but it's going to be a slow road. The one technology that could eventually bring things over are whole garment machines, where the garment is knit and linked in one machine, but the cost of that is prohibitive on a mass market basis right now. You're seeing it on the high end, and you're seeing some interesting small offshoots happening in the U.S. With whole garment, and we have a big whole garment operation overseas. Cobalt does on one of our higher end divisions, which is we think is going to help out higher end retailers. We can be competitive on it. But until that technology catches up, nearshoring is probably a little bit further away for the knitwear business on mass level.
Going back to thinking about relationships with the retailers, what services are they asking you for now that they haven't previously? Are they trying to do more, with your suppliers? How is that relationship continuing to evolve?
Well, with the virtual, it isn't just virtual design. So I think what they're also looking to do is do in-store setups, virtual store setups, virtual training for their customer, like for their employees in the store, that they would like them to, have access to the virtual imagery so that they can figure out how to merchandise the floors better. Things like that are really the added things that they're asking us that are a big challenge. But we're up to the task. We're starting to take that on.
Are you, and I think that you were very early on a lot of this, kind of 3D design and really thinking virtually. So, in terms of being ready for this environment, I think you are absolutely there. Have you seen, we're starting to hear ideas around kind of virtual showrooms, not only this idea of kind of suppliers showing retailers product, but then for the retailers to, kind of illustrate for their customers the product that's available. What are you seeing on kind of both sides of that aisle, if you will?
Yeah, that's starting to happen also. I also think it's a tremendous opportunity for them to test and really get guest insights off of product, doing it virtually, because a virtual sample that looks virtually real, or that they can 2D map and show in multiple colorways and different patterns and styles and get feedback on that before they place orders is, dream in a way. They can kind of lock in what they know is good. So, to be able to lock in great sales and to know that an item is going to sell is a tremendous value that they could unlock very soon.
Are you finding that as they're designing in 3D that there are, in some way, in a positive, are there more kind of people who are involved in the decision-making process? Are there more who are fine-tuning? Do you ultimately get a better product? How is 3D design just changing the whole process?
I think it's speeding it up in some ways, because it can speed the decision-making up process a lot faster. You can see an iteration of something, particularly a pattern, particularly color, much quicker. It may take hours for the digital artist to do it, but it doesn't take days to make the sample. There's no shipping transit. So you can really improve your speed to market decisions if you can eliminate a lot of the process and cut and reduce the sample making speed time.
One other aspect of our poll that I thought was quite interesting was that only 13% were interested in receiving a virtual sample over a physical one. How in this environment, how are you, right? I mean, especially with sweaters, right? Because it's so much about the touch and feel, and color is obviously important as well. How are you enabling these physical, if you will, kind of deliveries of samples? And, how is that changing the process overall?
Well, I think what we need is, you can't separate the physical from the virtual totally yet. There is definitely a level of uncomfortability, I guess you would say, discomfort with it. But I do think it's going to get improved as they go. And like what we really sort of need is a retailer to step out and sort of test the concept and say, like, what if we didn't look at it at all? Would it be a total disaster? And I don't think it would. I think, we can fit on the garments. I think you would have an understanding of yarn and fabric up front. And if you have like a vendor that has the expertise and the knowledge about fitting and draping and what's going to execute, you can pull off a digital sample line, and it would be very interesting to see how it would work out. But I think it's possible. I think we're just going to have to get to that point where the customer becomes more and more comfortable, and it's really a trust factor in your vendor, because your vendor has to, that's where it's like the survival of the fittest is going to happen in terms of vendors right now. It's very tough market to entry, particularly on a large scale mass market private label area where, the cost of entry is very high and the experience needs to be there. So I think that those who can position themselves and gain that trust and have those long-term relationships be able to make a virtual design work out much faster. And what's happening is with work from home, they have to make these decisions virtually. They all can't be in the room anymore. They have to, there's a level of trust that has to happen. I mean, we used to talk about, like, they used to have like a trust circle where everybody kind of got together and made a decision together. They can't do it the same way. They're really going to have to trust the one person who's seen the physical sample, because you just can't pass it around. Like, their offices aren't open. So for the next few months, it's going to be an interesting test to the retailer to how much they can, get comfortable with that fact.
One last question for me, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Please submit your questions through the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. How is your team, how are the interactions with your team continuing to evolve in this environment? And, do you have any, kind of words of wisdom in terms of success?
I think the key is again, focus. Because what we've seen is, when we're used to bringing it, there's only so much they can do in there. Our designers are mostly working from home. Like, we just recently opened up our office on a flex schedule basis. So it's been very challenging for them because they have their lives, they have their kids, they have, their spouses, their partners, and juggling the amount of time they're working crazy hours. So maybe they're working later, they're working, all sorts of different times. And there's all sorts of interruptions. So focus is really the key. And keeping the team focused on priorities and understanding what you can really accomplish and trying to change that habit has been the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity. Also. So once you can manage that, I think you'll point yourself in the right direction. I think we've had our ups and downs, in all honesty, managing that over the months, but we're getting better as we go.
Great. All right. Thank you, Dave. We're going to turn it to the audience for questions. We will just jump right in. What will be the material and apparel inventory level control now and in the coming future?
I think we're going to have tight controls on it. Like, we're a really inventory lean business. We cut to order and take it in and take it out, as they need it. We do stock and allow replenishment programs. So we bring that service to our customer domestically with the warehouse. But I think, what we're seeing is a lot less appetite by the mills and the factories to project and cover inventory in this economic environment. So I think a lot of people were burned by cancellations. So that's one thing that has been hurting speed to market business for us. You can't pre-position yarn the way you used to. Like, there's too much exposure levels at risk at this stage, particularly with the level of bankruptcies that we're seeing in the market.
This is an interesting question. Might be a little out of both of our kind of domain knowledge, but what are the concerns around increased returns, right? What are you hearing from retailers? They're thinking about reverse logistics?
It's a very interesting question. This is something that I'm waiting for a retailer to come to me on. They have not come yet, but I see it, the amount of stuff that my daughter orders and returns. And I'm going, wow, this has got to be really tough for a retailer to process, because as that online penetration picks up,
yeah.
And how do you manage those returns? And so I hope we don't see a change in terms. That's like what I'm worried about, is that they're going to push back to a vendor. But it's going to be a challenge for them.
Well, it's interesting. It's a very interesting question, and I probably ask more questions around it than have answers, which is with kind of virtual and all of the imagery and design continuing to, I think, evolve and innovate at such a pace. that perhaps where in cases it's been challenging to, what you see is not what you get, but I do feel that it's improving, and just, more, kind of product description pages, more images. It's, and the more that, we can look at reviews and whatnot, we may actually see right, we may see, and people are focusing on sustainability. So
Right.
I don't know, David, we could see a decrease in returns over time, right?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. I think as fits improve, the biggest issue is fitting. Like how does something fit you? And I think, in certain, it probably is dependent on certain categories. But it is beyond, it is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but I see it anecdotally in certain ways, but I can understand exactly what you're saying.
There's a few questions I'm going to ask you, and we can do our best together to answer some of them. How will Industry 4.0 have an impact on the supply chain post-pandemic?
How will Industry what was it?
I think as we're kind of moving into like a new, revolution, right? We've had the Industrial Revolution, and now moving into kind of the next one. How does that, kind of impact supply chain and impact yourself as well?
Well, I think the key, with the dream for us is to be able to do virtual samples that connect directly to the machines, right? So if those virtual samples and the knitting times and everything else, you can translate that directly to the factory's machine basis, which is happening in some level on a whole garment basis. That's a game changer. You can really connect, you can customize orders faster and speed up production. There's a lot of opportunity there.
And this one is around, what is the latest trends in supply chain audits? And I think, are they becoming more digital, or is it more physical at this point?
I don't necessarily know if I could answer that one so spectacular. I think it's still very physical.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, we've seen some new technologies that have, I would say emerged in the past 24 months. But obviously in this environment, there's even a greater need. So I'm sure we'll see more startups who kind of jump into this space. But as you and I both know, with some of the challenges that we're seeing in the greater environment, the more that can be done virtually, the greater that it will impact the overall organization. Another question in terms of, how are you utilizing data to make decisions around, kind of the yarn that you're pre-buying or your design? Do you have any kind of a trend engine? How are you getting your inspiration, I guess? And is it data, or is it, something else?
We are using analytics for trend. We have a couple of proprietary things that we do use for analytics for trend that help make some of those decisions. And we've been using data in terms of tracking internal orders, where things are going, trends, and from a trend standpoint. But not most of it is still design field, and trying to keep that special sauce that we have that's from our designability and our understanding of where the market is going.
Great. And last question from the audience. As you look at 2021, how do you take what you've learned this year, David, and apply it to next year, right? Now that we're in this environment, what have you learned, and how, I guess, are you more sustainable, more efficient, et cetera? How do you see the business changing for yourself?
Well, again, I think the biggest thing for us is, again, focus. Like, we are going to be, laser focused on our key priorities. And that's, I think, is the big thing for us, is how do we manage and get our top 3 key ideas and our top, narrowing things down in terms of strategy so that we can elevate that way. We also really think this is time for us to bear down and deliver on this cozy comfort that she's looking for. I think that's going to be, it's been a trend for a while, and it's a trend that matches up in our wheelhouse. So we will be, delivering that in a big way as we go forward with our customers.
Great, David. I'm going to think focus all day now. Thank you so much for your great insights and truly helping us think about the future. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.